Yes, folks, hello, welcome once again to Mod Extra Games and Collectibles. It's time for another action figure review here on the channel, and as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, today's installment is going to be taking a closer look at the brand new G.I. Joe Classified Series Synapse figure. So stick around, I'm going to give you all the ins and outs, ups and downs that you need to know, so if you've been thinking about picking up a Synapse for yourself, you'll have good, thorough information to make a purchase decision around it. Going to kick things off by jumping back in time and talking about the packaging on the day that Synapse arrived on my doorstep. Then we'll move into the figure himself, talk about the aesthetic and the visual experience, talk about the posability and the articulation, and then have a rundown of the accessories and added value. Pop him next to a couple of other G.I. Joe Classified Series figures, see how he fits within the collection. And with all that said and done, you should have plenty of good, thorough information to know whether this is the guy you want to crack your wallet or purse open for. So let's get into it, and let's jump back in time to visit past Chris, taking a look at the packaging on the day he arrived. Here we go. Okay, here we go then, folks. Here is Synapse then. Axel Synapse Soma in packaging. Classic G.I. Joe Classified Series packaging that we've seen for a while. Got the logo across the bottom. He's a Cobra character. Got the window in the centre showing off the figure and all the goodies, and then the name in the top left corner. On the back here, got the digital render showing off the figure in action. He's number 211 in the line. A couple of breakaway windows showing some key features. Import sticker, because I bought my figure from In-Demand Toys over here in the UK, who import their stock. Legal bollocks and malarkey across the bottom. And then so the file card information. Let's learn a bit more about Synapse together, shall we, folks? And did you know that Synapse, in addition to being like some like crazy rebel warrior dude, techno necromancer and all that, also acts on the side? So this first one here, that's him, representative of his role in the Terminator Genesis movie. This little computer screen here is about his cameo appearance in the Electric State. This one here with a bag of money, this is about the mega bucks he made from doing a cameo in I, Robot. And then finally, this little computer chip with a lock on it there, that is about his cameo in the film The Robot and Frank. Nice piece of artwork on the side, really selling that sort of anime, cyberpunky sort of thing that's going on with the character there. Love the kind of the profile, the face profile, really mean and cybernetic-y. And then all the crappy reused information on the side, as well as the QR code to nowhere. So there we go, boys and girls. There's Synapse in packaging. If you're minting box, there's your peek at that. But I'm not minting box. I'm going to get Synapse opened up, get him good and played with, put him in some dios, take some photos with him, pop him in some displays with some other figures, see how I feel about him, jot down some review thoughts. So stick around. Future Chris is going to come back and share those review thoughts with you in 3, 2, 1. All right then, folks, well, we're going to kick things off with the aesthetic, the visual experience section of the review, and here's a full head-to-toe look at Synapse for you to eyeball. Obviously, an original character for G.I. Joe Classified Series, so they're not really drawing inspiration from a vintage figure or a comic book design or anything like that. It's fresh out the mind of Lenny Panzica, previous lead designer over at G.I. Joe Classified Series. Although there are a couple of kind of vestigial elements that, this jacket at the top here is likely up for some reuse down the line for sure. So his whole thing is he's a Darklonian, noble guy who was involved in cyber technology, got screwed over by the Iron Grenadiers. He's got an axe to grind against Destro and Darklon and Mistress Armada and what have you, so he's joined up with Cobra Commander, seeking his moment to get his revenge. So it's all kind of cybernetic-y stuff, and then he's got some weapons later on which are all about using cybernetics and neural stuff to take over people's minds, even raise corpses, I think it says on his file card. So obviously the design, the overall kind of aesthetics, really leaning very heavily into that sort of cybernetic, part man, part machine kind of thing going on there for sure. So let's get in a bit closer. Let's have a look at some of the finer details. We'll kick things off with the head here. And, here, this is definitely one of the spots that leans very heavily into that sort of cybernetic enhancement, part man, part machine kind of thing I was just referring to. So you can see that he's got these kind of android sort of plate designs, obviously the metallic lower part of the skull there with the robotic jaw, and then as you turn the head round, you can see he's got kind of plated sections riveted in towards the back of his skull and whatnot, although he has kept a small portion of his hair in that classic G.I. Joe Classified Series weird Mad Max mohawk thing that they seem so obsessed with. There's lovely details in here. Look at the paint apps on the eyes. They look really great and just really stand out as a kind of key feature of that facial profile. Nice sculpted in details, particularly things like the little android lines with a wee wash on them. with this sort of green hue to them. The paneling at the back is nice, although a lot of the cybernetic stuff is in that sort of metallic plastic, so it's got that weird sort of marbling effect in, which I'm not always the biggest fan of. Got this skull-like profile on the cybernetic section with the nose piece missing, and then the big chompy claws set in like a skull. Could probably do with a little bit more in there, like maybe a paint application across the teeth or anything, but it's fine. I suppose the only other thing I'll point out is, you probably noticed here on his cheek, I've got a bit of paint spill where the metallic paint has gone up onto the cheek, and the same again here on the other side, but it's negligible. You'd have to be a toy tuber looking for small, minute things to be pernickety about to really notice that. Moving a bit further down into the figure, you can see that position as a Darklonian noble, an oligarch family, moneyed, kind of is reflective in the sort of uniform choice of this section here. So nice double-breasted jacket, got the painted buttons, the little ornamental decorations on the collar, and then the chain underneath. Nice little padding. Lots of little paint applications, actually, like little insignias and stuff, sculpted in insignias with paint on them across the top there. The buttons, the straps, the belt buckle. Always a big fan of a painted belt buckle. And then all these sculpted in pouches with like spare magazines and, I don't know, cybernetic weapons and what have you. You can't really see it very well because of the collar, but the neck looks great. Look at that kind of cybernetically enhanced neck. Got a real sort of anime, cyber, steampunky kind of vibe to it, which I really, really enjoy. And then moving down into the arms, you can see he's got his shoulder pauldrons there, again with a nice little ornamental kind of golden section that behooves his standing, his nobility. And then this wonderful cybernetic arm. You can see they've got the sculpted details in there to make it look all robotic and stuff. Another little golden trim in there, but spiky bits as well to show you means combat business. Lovely bits here, like that kind of robot style tubing piece that you often find on these kind of G.I. Joe Classified series figures, and then a very robotic looking hand, and that's the same on both sides, both arms. The only thing I will say about the arms, like I mentioned with the plates on the back of his skull, it's in that metallic plastic, so he's got that weird sort of marbling effect, which doesn't look too bad in terms of the overall visual design of the character, and certainly consistent along with the robotic pieces in the head. But I'm just not the biggest fan of it. I don't like it when they use it in Marvel Legends, for example. I'd have preferred something a bit sort of deeper, more mechanical looking overall. But there you go. Then down into the legs. The legs are a bit bland. I mean, they're fine. It's reuse legs, I suspect. I'm quite confident we've seen these in the line before. So it's got the sort of textural details, texture details in there, pockets, thigh pockets, etc., etc. Nice creases and folds and bunching up at the top of the boot, and then the boot itself we've seen before as well, with the nice sculpted details in like the laces and the leathery effect and stuff. The black plastic on the legs is a little bit shiny. I don't know if you can see down the bottom here, and don't fully match the hips at the top there, which always stands out sometimes. But it's all right in the grand scheme. Yeah, not a lot to say about that, really. I mean, he's just gone for practical pants and practical boots. I suppose my feedback would be the same as it was with Professor Rockclaw, that you got all this lovely kind of cybernetic stuff and this kind of very noble-looking dress jacket on the top half, and then down in the legs, just combat pants and combat boots. I'd have thought Synapse might have wore some more interesting boots or had some cybernetic enhancements down here, perhaps. So I feel like they sort of missed a trick just to really take the character to the nth degree there. But I mean, fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with them. They look fine. They look fine, well sculpted. Just a pair of pants and combat boots, you know what I mean? No, aesthetically, yeah, I think he's a really interesting character. That whole, as I described it before, that sort of anime, steampunky, cyber vibe really speaks to me, particularly in the top half. I feel like they've missed a trick on the legs. In fact, that's 2 for 2 on Cobra unique characters, original characters, where I just feel like they sort of bombed out on the legs. But I suspect it's a budget issue, that they're going to have to half design and then half reuse to get it through the accountants over at Hasbro. You know what I mean? But definitely stands out as something interesting. Got a nice bit of shelf presence there with all this stuff going up top, and I like that slightly different flavor, that slightly different tone in G.I. Joe Classified that's still broadly consistent with your good old-fashioned Cobra Weirdos crew. So yeah, I think I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I've found him of this whole wave that's arrived. I found him being the one that's caught the eye that I keep kind of going back to, except for one other, which I'll review in good time. So yeah, there you go. Make of him what you will. But that's where I'm standing with it. I find him very aesthetically interesting, an interesting visual experience. So there we go. Right. Well, let's now move on to talk about his articulation and posability, shall we? And just a quick note, as always, folks, the articulation is pretty much standard G.I. Joe classified series articulation. So if you're not so interested in seeing this rundown, I'll put chapters in. You can use the timestamps to jump ahead to the accessories and added value section of the review. However, if this is the first G.I. Joe classified series review you've ever watched, or you want to know whether there's any particular quirks, any interesting quirks, then stick around. I'll talk you through it, and I'll get started up top with the head. So Synapse here has got a ball at the base of the skull, ball at the base of the neck, so his forward gets you to about there, his back gets you up to there. Probably could go a little bit further if it wasn't for this little rat tail on his mohawk. And then the ball on the top of the skull means you can full 360 and do all your sort of tilting and movement there like so. Coming down into the shoulder, it's a butterfly joint, a peg, and a hinge, so you can shuffle forward and back. Go full 360 with the peg like so, and then T-shape him out like that. The shoulder pads are tagged in. I don't know if you can see that, tagged in at the top of the shoulder there, so you can move them along with the shoulder joint like so. And as you saw when I teed it out, they come up and sit across the top, nice and easy. Then we've got a swivel at the top of the bicep and tricep. Got a pinless double elbow that'll get you up to there. And then his pegged in hands that can move at the wrist. And then this right hand's got a forward and back hinge on it. And this left hand's got an up and down hinge on it. Coming into the torso, it's the hinge across the middle there for the ab crunch, and then a ball joint under here at the waist. So he crunches forward like so, crunches back like so. Obviously crunching him back, you can see he reveals a big purple dead space there. And the ball joint is under this bottom section of the coat, but nicely the coat doesn't get in the way of the movement there too much at all. Drop down at the hip and groin here, so you can come forward like so. Russian ballet him out like that. Got a swivel here at the top of the thigh. Pinless double knee that'll get you up to there. Boot cut at the top of the boot. And then the old hinge and rocker at the ankles and feet. So, thumbs up, no issues here with the articulation posability, up to the usual G.I. Joe classified series standard. No particular quirks, nothing in the design getting in the way with the articulation. When I was taking photos with him a couple of days ago, my imagination was able to come real in the articulation, in the posability. Decent independent standard, everything you would look for, really. Everything is fine and dandy on that front. Thumbs up. All right, so there you go. There's articulation posability. Let's now take a closer look at his accessories and added value, shall we? And I'm going to start things off with Synapse's backpack here. Lovely sculpted detail in this, really, again, leaning into that part man, part machine, cybernetically enhanced sort of vibe with this sort of spinal style sculpt across the back here. A couple of gold panels as well. Paint applications on a backpack, love that, to bring the tie it together, uniformly with the rest of his gear with the golden panels on it. And then we've got this really cool arm up the top here. So they call this what do they call it? The synaptic cyber hand or something, synapse hand, which you can see here is on an arm that comes out the side of the backpack, and it's got this little ball joint there, so you can move it around at the base. And then he's got an elbow in here too. You can swivel it around, and then it's sculpted like a normal hand. So it's got pegged in, and you can do your forward and back hinge. Now, this is all closed up here, but there is a swap for an opened up one. So I'll switch that out in a second. But before I do, look at all the quality. Even in the section you don't see, nice sculpted in padded details there. So this is, he can take control of things with his synapse hand, synapse claw, like a kind of cybernetic hypnosis type thing. So let's take a look at the hand swap, shall we? There you go, look at that, super cool. So that's with it opened up with all these really gnarly kind of pointed claws there, look at these. And then the little kind of cyber eye in the middle with the matching padded details to the inside there for his little kind of cybernetic mind control type thing that he does. And you can see that's got a forward and back hinge on it as well. So along with the arm articulation, you can do loads of stuff with it. Standard peg and peg hole in the back. And then you can see there how the arm comes out over his top left shoulder. And you can use the articulation in the backpack to do fun poses and like mind control shit, and just really cool, really fun. And obviously it adds a great deal to that visual identity of the character and that sort of part man, part machine, anime style cyber freak that they've got going on, which is really cool. Then we have a single hand swap here, like a open-palmed evil claw hand swap for the left arm there. This serves a particular purpose, but you can see it's a good classic, just kind of evil claw kind of situation. But it ties into the use of another accessory, so let's get into that. You do the hand swap, it's on a forward and back hinge, so you can get that kind of nice push-back wrist situation. You can see under here, we've got a little shooty barrel thing with a port in the end of it, and that is for use with his mind spike, I think they call it, his mind spike here, which is like this little kind of scorpion, get over here type claw thing on a cord there. So he's got these three little spiked arms, and then the kind of cyber cord pattern in it with a little peg right at the other end. And I've sort of interpreted this as a kind of thing that he shoots out and then like stabs into the back of the neck in the base of the skull of his enemies and sort of takes him over with his mind spike. I suppose the only thing that's missing is an actual little spike inside the three fingers of it there, but that's kind of how I've been posing it up and using it. The peg here and the hole on his hand is a little bit of a fiddle to get in, but you'd expect that with a tiny little peg hole, but it is possible to do nice and easy. There you go then. See, I've just quickly chucked that in, and it's got this sort of kind of mid-air sort of effect with a little bit of a, I don't know what you call it, like an unraveling as it shoots out. It's fine. It's good. It is a bit of a fiddle when you're trying to pose it up. Like if you've got his arm out and his palms up like that, you have to sort of swivel it in the port here just to kind of get it angled, and it does, the weight of this at the other end does make it droop a little bit. Could have done with being a little bit stronger in the arm, but still really cool effect, cool weapon, something a bit different, and I had a lot of fun posing it up with a shot of him sort of firing it into the back of the head of a Joe to take over their mind. Then Synapse has got his kind of like, submachine-y gun pistol thing here. I don't know quite how to describe it, but again, it leans into that aesthetic. It's very reminiscent of sort of these science fiction kind of anime style machine gun type things. Mine is a little warped. I'll heat it back into shape, but I kept it like this for the purposes of the review. But fine, yeah, lovely sculpted details in there. Really interesting look and feel to it. It's got two effect ports on the barrels there, so it's like a really intense firepower coming off that. The magazine's removable, like so, pretty standard for G.I. Joe Classified. Although what I will say is the little port, the channel there for pegging it in, is a little bit shallow, and I sometimes knock it out by accident. So I think it's a very interesting accessory selection. Definitely a thumbs up. I love how everything there all sort of ties into the kind of science fiction, cyberpunk vibe that they've given the character, and how it all contributes to the overall visual experience, ties into the sort of visual identity. And also opens up a world of possibility in terms of how you might want to pose him, how you might want to display him, how you might want to photograph him, because it means you can get him into all sorts of different types of shenanigans, like attacking people with his claw or taking over their mind with his synaptic hand thing. Cool-looking gun that's unique to the line. I don't think anybody else has got that gun. Extra hand swaps and stuff. Yeah, all comes together quite nicely for me and adds to the overall experience. So I'm giving the accessories a thumbs up. All right, well, there you go. There's the accessory selection then. I believe it's added value, I think, although it is a bit light. Let's now take a look at him next to a couple of other classified figures, shall we? And I'll get us started by popping Synapse next to Crystal Ball here. Kind of two sides of the same coin in a way, how I see them. Crystal Ball's like the mystic side of the sort of mindfuckery, whereas Synapse is the cybernetic sci-fi side of mindfuckery. So I sort of see them as both operating in the same space, plus classic Cobra weirdos. Here's Synapse next to the Arctic Bat. Just sort of dug this one out for other reasons, but it's a nice example of kind of how the kind of cyber bit is approached differently, but still sort of tonally the same. Here's Synapse next to Professor Rockclaw, fellow original creation for G.I. Joe Classified on the Cobra side, but also because they kind of share the same hairdresser. Here's Synapse next to the Iron Grenadier Destro that he seeks to take revenge upon. And here's Synapse next to Mistress Armada. Not only is she a wave mate and a future upcoming review here on the channel, but also the individual responsible for the death of Synapse's family, who he wants to take revenge on. Okay then, folks, well, here is Synapse going round on the turntable for you to get a 360 look at the figure. Oh, he's rocking and rolling back and forward a little bit there. I've not flattened his feet properly. Never mind. But while you're having a look at that, I'll offer up some final thoughts. And yeah, I think he's a really interesting character. It's no secret to regulars around these parts that I'm an advocate for the idea of original designs in G.I. Joe Classified. I feel like it's important to evolve the line and offer us new and interesting things at times. And I also like when it gets a bit weirder, when it gets a bit wackier, when it gets a bit more balmy. And can you get any more weirder, wackier, and balmier than a cyberpunk disgruntled Dartlonian noble with loads of like weird techie gear with neural mind control stuff, can raise bodies and do all sorts of weird shit. I mean, it's obviously right up my alleyway. And I've not had a lot of complaints, have I, through the course of the video? The only thing that bothers me is that I feel like they're just really skanking us and cutting us short on the legs. Like this guy could have done with just a little bit of something extra to lean into that cyberpunk half-man, half-machine thing down in the leg area as well as in the top half. But overall, I've enjoyed the figure and have continued to enjoy the figure. I've had a whole wave arrive at the same time. Well, nearly a whole wave. There's one I didn't go for. So there's a lot of competition for my attention right now. And Synapse has been capturing my attention for sure. And he's really captured my imagination when I was taking photos with him the other day. So I'd recommend this. If your mileage will obviously vary how you feel about the original characters, but I'd recommend it if that's not an issue for you. So there we go. Okay then, folks. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful if you're thinking about picking up a Synapse. I hope I've helped you make up your mind. If I did, then hit all those buttons that help a toy tubing mate out. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching. Take it easy. Have yourselves a great day. Have yourselves a great week. And do me a favour, swing back around again for another video sometime soon. It'd be my pleasure to have you. All right? Take it easy now. Bye-bye.